Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to everybody's favorite show about plastic surgery, health, and beauty. This is Nip Talk. On today's episode, first off, an OBGYN loses his medical license for a death in a Brazilian butt lift? What? Then, 9/11 Ground Zero causing a massive surge in male breast cancer. How's it doing that? And then finally, what is a quantum computer? I'm going to explain it so anyone can understand it, and it's all coming up right now.
Live from Lincoln Center in the heart of the Dallas Metroplex, this is Nip Talk, an honest and uncensored show about plastic surgery, health, beauty, and lifestyle. With your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and your co-host, entrepreneur and social media influencer Sarah Bennett. Now it's time to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the topics everyone is talking about. It's time for Nip Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. It helps us so much. I'm your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann. With me, as always, is Sarah.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah. What's up? I love your sweater.
Oh, thanks.
Very cool. I like that. In the box, Trey. What's up, man?
Hello, how are you?
Happy Thursday. Good. Yeah, it's weird being here on Thursday, but every once in a while we have to do that.
It is kind of strange.
I know, right? It's like, oh, it's the end of the week. No, it's not. One more day. Yeah, I got big surgery tomorrow. My business gets super busy at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know, people have time off and they want to get surgeries done. So, like, my office just, like, crams in surgeries. So, yeah, usually on Friday I'm only operating half a day, but tomorrow's a full day.
Does it get heavier in January just from people making like New Year's resolutions? I mean, that's not really part of it, but like maybe to like look better or something.
You know, I haven't seen that. That's a good question about, you know, whether plastic surgery would see a bump with New Year's. What, Trey's laughing?
It's a funny New Year's resolution. My New Year's resolution is to look better this year.
Like get some Botox.
Let's go get some plastic surgery.
Or like
Facts.
do something
But
that's
no,
like
people
for
do
yourself.
that.
No, for sure. It's just
they-
funny to say aloud, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good question. I would say probably there is some percentage of people that wander in because they're like, it's a new year, it's a new
Or
me.
does stuff go down because some people make resolutions not to spend so much money?
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe it offsets each
I
other.
felt that whenever I used to own my boutique.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I think that a
January
lot of
was
people are
always a
just
bad
like
month.
out spending money at the end of the year, and then I guess at the beginning of the new year, maybe you're right. People are like, you know what, I'm gonna like kind of
Chill out.
chill out, not spend a lot of stuff. Yeah, honestly, things kind of do die off after the first of the year. I usually am pretty busy through January because so much stuff piles up at the end of the year. We just can't get it. Like, we're all booked up for the entire month, so like I have no, except for emergencies, have no surgery time until January. So now people that are coming in are, you know, getting added on in January.
Yeah.
So usually January is pretty busy, and then it does slow down. Like February is kind of like probably one of my slower months, and then in the spring, you know, people are getting ready for summer, and so it'll pick back up.
Yeah.
But then now with the med spa, like we constantly are getting like a trickle of people. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there are definitely some cycles.
Yeah.
Dumb.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean it can. There's times where it just gets crazy busy, and then of course, you know, this fall, which normally is really busy, was slow because of the election. I think we talked about that.
Why? Why would it be
We didn't talk
slow?
about that? Yeah, so like during election years, and this is like a real thing, like it actually happens because of the uncertainty of the election, people don't spend money as much.
Okay.
And it's really big in plastic surgery because, you know, plastic surgery is all about spending lots of discretionary money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely there is a dramatic drop. In fact, I actually started calling around because I was like really slow, and I was like, man, this is wild. And so I called some surgery friends, and they're like, yeah, we're dead right now. We were actually kind of busy for an election year. Because there wasn't really any days where I didn't have a surgery. It's just instead of doing a full day of surgery, I might do 2 hours.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it picked up pretty quickly after all that kind of ended. So it's kind of more or less a normal year, I guess.
That's good.
I mean,
that's what happens to the economy. It
Yeah,
kinda,
I think a lot of people
goes
are telling me.
dormant and then it goes up whenever somebody gets elected.
I was talking to some people that just ran, you know, I like to talk, and so when patients come in, I always find common interests, and although it drives my office nuts because it
What,
sometimes
you like to talk?
a little bit. I just like to talk to people, and you know, and so I was asking people that have different businesses, and they were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
No matter what they were, like HVAC people or, you know, I mean, just every business, like, yeah, it's a little slow right now because of the election. Trey, was it podcasting slow because of the election? Like in the studio here?
No. If anything, get geared up. You know, people love to talk about stuff like that. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally see that. Probably the one thing that's not going to be slow is media production. Yeah, that was a dumb question.
Well, it wasn't a dumb question. It was a good question. But no, yeah.
It was a good
Aren't
question
you
with
a
a very
doctor?
simple answer that obviously everyone should know and
No, it
feel
was a great
shamed
question.
because I asked it.
Yeah, we had a lot of like traffic with the election coming through just because people want to like get
Sure.
both sides of it.
Yeah, and what about the radio stuff? Probably, I guess your radio show's not, does it talk about election stuff?
We
or-
do. So we have like a segment where we do like news stories. So sometimes we do like dabble into that.
I'm sorry.
It's just like you might get a phone call. In
Yeah,
the
you
middle
might
of
get a
show.
phone call in the middle.
You just never know.
He's doing that on the side.
But yeah, we do dabble into it a little bit. So it did provide some really good content.
Yeah,
Yeah, some really good content.
I bet.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of content, let's jump into some segments. And I got a super crazy story out of, where's this from, Sarah?
Florida.
Absolutely. Another crazy one out of Florida. This one is,
The OBGYN one.
yeah, this one's pretty nuts. So this is a very crazy and sad story out of Florida, and it revolves around an OBGYN, so an obstetric and gynecologist, that just lost his medical license because he had a patient die when he was doing a Brazilian butt lift. What? Why was an OBGYN doing a Brazilian butt lift? That's the whole point of this crazy segment.
So did he have a plastic surgery business, or was he just like,
He had a cosmetic
here's a
surgery
C-section
business.
and also a butt lift?
Yeah, he was running a med spa that does surgery, which is just kind of bizarre. So this actually happened in 2021. Patient's name was Dr. Christopher Walker, who is an OBGYN. I think he did a year of family practice residency and then an OBGYN residency. And in his med spa, he was performing a Brazilian butt lift. So for those who don't know,
And it wasn't in a hospital.
correct, yep. Because
Or
why,
is-
Sarah? Because you're
Because
so
he
smart.
doesn't have his certified whatever plastic
Yes,
surgery thing.
yes, right, because he can't get
Or
privileges.
certified.
Yep, absolutely right. So he can't get privileges in a legit facility, so he's doing it out of his office. So he's doing a Brazilian butt lift. For those who don't know, Brazilian butt lift is where you harvest fat from various areas.
And it's the worst.
They're bad.
right?
I don't like them. I'm against Brazilian butt
gross.
lift. I
Ew.
will not do one because they're so dangerous. So he was harvesting. So you
kill
harvest
people.
and people die, man. I'm not kidding. Like people die from these. So with the Brazilian butt lift, you harvest fat and then you inject it into the buttocks area. And I've talked about Brazilian butt lifts. I do not like these surgeries. I will not perform them. There is a extremely high mortality rate compared to other surgeries and other problems that can happen. So this doctor is doing this Brazilian butt lift. He thought everything was good. He's just marching along, and suddenly the nurse anesthetist says, "Hey, doctor, the patient doesn't have a pulse anymore," which is obviously a very bad thing. It means that you've gone into cardiac arrest. So he starts.
Gosh.
Yeah, bad. So he starts CPR. They transfer the patient to the hospital. Patient gets taken to emergency surgery. Patient gets opened up, and they discover that during the liposuction, which we've talked about that, liposuction is where you use a hollow rod to suck out fat, the doctor perforated through the abdominal muscles and stabbed the liver, stomach, small and large intestines, and the pancreas, which I'm going to explain why that is just so insane. And unfortunately, due to the numerous injuries that the patient received, almost like they were stabbed with a sword or shot, the patient bled to death. They could not save the patient, which is very sad. So I mentioned the pancreas.
Crazy.
Yes.
That girl must have not had very much fat on her abdominal area. Maybe.
Maybe not. I don't know. I want to kind of explain why this is just so egregiously bad and because
It sounds like no technique.
very bad technique. So I've done tons and tons of liposuction over the years. Every once in a blue, so I do it a lot with tummy tucks, right? So I do a liposuction with tummy tuck. I'm sucking out the fat, and then I open things up because I want to take off the skin, and so I can kind of see how good of a job I did. And every once in a blue moon, I will occasionally just kind of skim that muscle layer. Like I've never, knock on wood, perforated it, but I can see where the lipocannula just kind of skimmed across it. And it actually, you have to really kind of get out of sorts if you know what you're doing to perforate that muscle layer because it's pretty thick and it's pretty hard. So this guy, and I have a picture, Trey, can you throw up that next image? And yeah, okay, so this is a CT of the abdomen. So this is a cross section through the abdomen. That big white oval is the spine. And then you can see the ribs along the edges. Those are the white kind of dots of the rib cage. So the white arrow at the very top is the fat layer. Now, this patient doesn't really need liposuction because they're very fit. This is not the patient in question. I'm just using this as an example. So the white arrow is pointing to the fat layer. It's kind of that grayish area. It's not the kind of whiter area below or the dark area above. That's the fat layer. The orange X at the top is the muscle layer. That's the one you don't want to go through. The red X is the pancreas.
So that dude straight up stabbed
Dude,
her.
how in the world did he get that cannula at the pancreas? It's like right in the middle of your abdominal cavity. It's just mind-boggling
Straight up.
that he could even get it down there.
Maybe the person that he was doing liposuction on, like, was so, like, not fit at all. Maybe he didn't feel it.
Yeah, so that's a great comment, Sarah. When you're doing liposuction, one way that you know you're going in the right direction is you have one hand on the cannula, and you have your other hand either holding the fat up and you're feeling the rod kind of go between your fingers, or at the very least, you're using your fingers to feel the tip of the rod. So that's one of the tricks. So obviously don't try this at home because you can obviously hurt people. But that's the way that I know I'm in the right position. I'm basically I'm using the rod with one hand, but I'm guiding or feeling the rod with the other. So I know that I'm not going too deep and I'm not going to injure someone, because obviously going through that muscle layer can result in death. So how did this happen? How did this doctor egregiously screw this up? Well, it's because he doesn't have proper training.
Yeah.
You know, I will at least say that an OBGYN has some surgical training, because GYN, my wife's an OBGYN. She did surgery.
Yeah.
Of course, it's very specialized surgery. Things like hysterectomies and tubal ligations and, you know, mostly
Not BBLs.
Correct, not Brazilian butt lifts. This guy had
Delivering babies and
This
such.
guy had no plastic surgery training. Now, I did a super deep dive on this one because I want to bring you guys the absolute best information. I actually downloaded the PDF from the Florida Medical Board that talked in a lot of detail about this, and it was kind of mind-numbing to read it because it's all in legal speak. But it did talk about the training that this doctor received to make him feel like he could even do
like
this.
Shadow somebody. Or something.
Yes. So in 2017, this doctor attended a 2-day course in Massachusetts on tummy tucks, where liposuction was being performed. However, he was just watching. He couldn't actually do it, obviously, because he didn't have a license in Massachusetts and he wasn't trained, so he just watched. In 2008, he attended a 3-day course in Florida where he was allowed to put his hand on the hand of a surgeon doing liposuction, like almost as if, you know, when you're trying to teach a child like how to swing a golf club and they're well, I guess that would be the opposite, but you get my drift. He wasn't actually doing it. He was putting his hand on a surgeon that was doing it to kind of feel. So this guy did a 2-day course and a 3-day course where he didn't actually do anything, and thus felt he was capable to perform these procedures that I did 8 years of on-hands training to be able to do. And the saddest part is after this basically zero experience, that still was enough to get him board certified by the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery. Remember when we talk about fake boards? How big of a joke is the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery that they will certify somebody who's had 5 days of training in plastic surgery? An absolute just joke. It's a travesty. That's why I always talk about board certifications, and they're only being...
That's so scary.
It is, because that person obviously will put on their website, board certified by American Cosmetic Surgery. Yeah, absolutely, just almost...
I could see, like, that's, like, a good business idea for, like,
Of course.
an OBGYN to, like, be in charge of a med spa, but to be in charge of it and then have maybe plastic surgeons working for him, if he was just
Sure.
the business owner of it.
Yeah, you know, and that brings up a great question, because that is...
If that's what he wanted to do with his
Yeah.
business, that's what he should have done instead of just, like...
I have a... I don't want to say beef, but my counterpoint to that, and I think it's, you know, a great... you make a good point that this guy could run the business and then actually hire the proper people.
and not do the surgery.
So, as you may or may not know, every med spa in the United States has to have a medical director, okay, who technically should be in charge of all the procedures that are being done. Now, in this case, doing surgery in a med spa is really weird. That's not like a common thing. But But just take your regular med spa that has, lasers or anything like that. The medical director really should be the one that's kind of in charge and the kind of the end all be all of knowing about these things. Well, most med spas are actually run not by a doctor, they're run by someone else, but their medical director, they have to have a medical director, so they'll hire maybe like a family practice doc to be the medical director, so they're legit, and then someone else actually runs it. And so, I have a little bit of beef with that, and the med spa I run, I'm the medical director, and I know about these procedures in a lot of detail because aesthetics and plastic surgery are commingle, right?
Yes.
Dermatology be another decent medical director because they're very knowledgeable about skin and those type of things as well. But when you get a med spa that's run by someone who doesn't have that knowledge, there is some gaps there.
Yeah.
It's like the remember the story of the med spa where they were doing IV therapy and they got the wrong IV bags and the patient died.
Yeah, I remember
their medical director was like an anesthesiologist. Well, what does an anesthesiologist know about? I guess they would know about IV fluids, but just aesthetics in general, they're not going to know a whole lot. So anyway, back on track with Dr. Christopher Walker, who this past week, the Florida Medical Board basically crucified him. There was a board-certified plastic surgeon on the medical board and just tore this guy apart, saying that, he had no training whatsoever to perform these procedures, which absolutely can be very, very dangerous. He didn't even know that he'd done this. He thought the patient was doing fine, and then suddenly they were in cardiac arrest. So they did.
At least he didn't pretend like it didn't happen.
Right. At least he did call
Like that
911.
other
Okay. Yes, we will give him. We will. Yes.
That other doctor was just like, we'll just wait a bit.
Yeah.
See
Let's
if
go
she'll
see
wake
some
up.
consults. Yeah. So I guess we can give him a consolation prize if he did at least do the right thing and call 911, and there was an attempt to save the patient. Correct, which is good. Unfortunately, it didn't work just due to the massive injuries that the patient received. But yeah, I think that obviously when we talk about these things, we're not doing it for sensationalism. It's really to educate people. Prevention, right? Because the average consumer gets really confused about who's trained to do what, and the bottom line is if you're going to have plastic surgery, you should go to a plastic surgeon. There's an enormous amount of training that goes into it. As I said, I did eight years of surgical training, board certification, which requires massive amounts of just testing and certification that you know what you're doing. This guy was doing the same things that I do, and he went to 5 days worth of courses where he didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
And that is very scary. And that's not just Florida. There are people in this Dallas Metroplex, probably within 5 miles of this chair I'm sitting in, that are doing the same thing. I once found a internal medicine doctor that was doing Brazilian butt lifts here in Dallas, Texas, in his office under local.
Gross.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
So if somebody's watching this, they should comment what doctor they're thinking about seeing, and then we can investigate them.
Investigate him.
Put them on blast.
I've actually thought about that. I've actually had that exact idea where, I set up a website and someone can drop in a doctor's name and then we kind of review them and make sure they're legit.
That'd be fun.
You want to start a business together?
Trey,
Yen, the three of us?
For a segment, that would be fun. I don't know if I would be able to do that all the time.
I could teach you how to do it. What if you could do it if we were making money at it?
And then we could go undercover.
Oh my gosh.
I can go into the office.
You can go
Travis, help us. Yeah, you're the spy. We were just talking
here
about you were a
for
spy earlier.
BBL consult.
Oh my gosh. But scary stuff. Once again, if you're going to have plastic surgery, go to a board certified plastic surgeon, not a cosmetic surgeon. That's not a real thing. Cosmetic surgeons are not real. They're made up.
You could go in for elf ears.
Dude, I kind of like elf ears. We haven't talked about the elf ears in at least 6 months.
And it's so appropriate right now because it's Christmas.
Yeah, I don't want to be like a Christmas elf. I want to be like a Lord of the Rings
elf.
Lord of the Rings elf. All right, Trey, let me recap this segment really quickly. So today on Nip Talk, we were talking about the insane and very sad story of a woman in Florida who in 2021 died from a Brazilian butt lift. I talk about Brazilian butt lifts all the time. I think they're very dangerous. I will not perform them. I do not think they're good surgeries. However, in this instance, the Brazilian butt lift was performed by an OBGYN What? That's insane. How can that happen? Well, they do it in their office where there's very little regulation. And this OBGYN, when they were doing the liposuction, perforated the patient's abdominal wall and stabbed the liver, the stomach, the intestines, and even the pancreas, which is totally insane because the pancreas is immensely deep, almost by your spine. And the doctor didn't even know he did it, was just continuing the procedure, and the patient went into cardiac arrest. Unfortunately, the patient was rushed to the hospital and did not survive. So why did this happen? Well, it's obvious. An OBGYN is not trained to do plastic surgery. They're not trained to do Brazilian butt lifts. This guy did 2 courses. One was 2 days long and one was 3 days long, neither one of which where he actually performed any surgery. And then he thought, hey, I'm good enough to be a plastic surgeon, and this is the outcome. Fortunately, this guy did lose his medical license. The Florida Board of Medicine did revoke it. But scary stuff. If you're going to have plastic surgery, go to a board-certified plastic surgeon. That way you know they have the proper training and proper certification to do your surgery safely and give you good results. Bam! Bam.
That's so crazy.
Trey's like, what is he doing?
Damn.
I saw the look on Trey's face.
That's the signal.
No, it's just
That was a signal, Trey.
I guess
that
so.
means pan out. We're going to something else. All right, good stuff. Okay, this one is a pretty interesting story, and I have to thank my wife. She really likes me to acknowledge that she found something that I'm using on the show. She's like,
As you should.
as I should. I do appreciate it. And listen, you two guys, girls, also if you see stuff, text it to me because I'm always looking for stories. And all you people out there in the interwebs, what camera am I looking at? In the interwebs, if you see a story, you want me to talk about it, send it to me on one of the socials or comment, and I will do it. So moving on to segment 2, this is kind of interesting. There has been a surge in male breast cancer because of ground zero from 9/11 in New York City. This is kind of wild. So this comes from a news article that my wife sent to me. Throw that article up in case people want to see it. Trey, boom, number of men with breast cancer near New York City's ground zero skyrockets now 90 times the national average. Something definitely is going on here. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about male breast cancer, which we've never talked about, I don't think. We've talked about so many topics. I don't think we've ever talked about, have we?
I think we've mentioned it, but
We
I don't
mentioned
think
it?
it's never been a segment.
Every once in a while, I'll do a segment. You guys are like, we've already done this one.
No, I don't think we've done it.
You know how many segments
we've
we've done?
as a
We've done like
segment.
125 segments. No, not segments, shows. That's 675 segments that we've done. We're like legit.
We're researchers.
We're science.
Mostly you.
Science happening right here. Okay, so why would, and this is for people who are either at or near working or living around ground zero, why would these people have a surge in male breast cancer? So
Is there some kind of radiation there?
that is one of the reasons, Sarah. I will jump to number 3 because you pointed this out. Radiation and particulate matter from the collapse of the towers can cause DNA damage and increase the risk of cancer.
But where did the radiation come from?
I mean, that's a big building. There's, say for example, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but say there was an X-ray machine or something that got destroyed. There could be, I mean, and I don't even know if there's an X-ray machine would be the right thing, but the Twin Towers had, hundreds of businesses in there, and there would be some hazardous materials.
So like all of the printers that were in there?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Do printers carry radiation?
You are really getting out of my wheelhouse. Trey, do printers carry radiation?
Like scanners, like those big printers?
Like a big printer, Trey. How much
They're
radiation
heavy.
is in a big? He's looking at me like with a very kind of blank
Look
look
it
on his
up.
face.
I am
no,
not sure.
don't look it up.
I am not
He's
sure.
looking it
I
up.
felt like he might know because Trey will come out with some knowledge, and I'm like, whoa, Trey, that's pretty good. Okay, I don't know. Trey's
all
gonna
of the cell phones that were in there?
right. Okay, maybe so. They're all
Oh,
storing a little bit of radiation.
They actually do.
They
Printers,
do.
they
Okay,
do.
thank you,
Even a
Every
small-
floor.
Sarah. Very smart. Okay,
Every
like
floor had probably 10
exactly
in there.
right.
Ay, ay, ay.
We're really getting off in the weeds here. So,
Hey.
radiation and particulate matter. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Sarah. The first one that I kind of came up with was toxic dust and chemicals, but it's along the same lines. So, within the trade towers, when they collapsed, there was a release of a lot of toxic materials, asbestos, dioxins, heavy metals, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are called PAHs. These are all known carcinogens, meaning they increase your risk of cancer. So when the towers collapsed, all of these toxic chemicals got released, and so that makes sense.
Yeah.
There were also chemicals that cause endocrine disruption. So some chemicals can interfere with hormone function and thus increase cancers that are hormone related, one of which is
Cancer.
Breast cancer, yes. Very good. Very good. And then lastly, this one's kind of a little bit more of a stretch, but also true. Psychological and physical stress, which obviously anyone around ground zero would definitely have, does suppress immune function, which also plays a part in repairing DNA and preventing cancer. So those are some of the reasons that people around ground zero could definitely have increase in breast cancer. And it's not just breast cancer. There's a laundry.
Other cancers.
Yeah, there's a laundry list of diseases and cancers that people who were working in around ground zero have had higher incidence of. But this one's pretty crazy, 90 times higher. So let's talk a little bit about male breast cancer, which we've never talked about. As people probably know, but maybe not know a lot about it, men can get breast cancer just like women do.
Yeah, because they have lymph nodes in there too, right?
Breast tissue. We have lymph node. You're on the right track. Yes.
Okay.
Breast cancer and lymph nodes go hand in hand, so you're definitely on the right track. But specifically, they have breast ducts and breast lobules like women do. They're just much smaller because the signals to make those grow are not there in men.
Yeah.
They're there. They're just in very, very small amounts. You know, we have estrogen just like women do, and men have testosterone. Women have testosterone just like men do, but it's just different amounts. And so we do have breast tissue, which is very small, except in the case of gynecomastia, which we've talked about, which is where men will have an unusual amount of breast tissue. So
this is a side topic. Do people
bring it? I love it.
Do people that
side
have
quest,
that,
Trey? We're on a side quest.
Do people that have that problem, like having the man boob problem,
boobs.
They have higher increase of getting breast cancer?
You know, I don't think so. That's a great question that I don't know the answer to, Sarah. I don't think so because I think if they did, I would know that.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Okay.
So if it is, maybe just
because it's like an abnormal thing, and like
it's just,
breast cancer is an abnormal thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, I've never heard that gynecomastia has any notable. Now, maybe like a tiny millionth of a percent higher, but I've never heard that it has any notable increase in breast cancer. But I will do some research, Sarah. I love when you bring these questions up. I don't know the answer to.
I don't know.
Because it makes me learn stuff, and it makes me better at educating the general populace. So I really derailed myself. So yes, men have ducts and lobules just like women do, and so they can get breast cancer. I think one of the big reasons that the rate's so much lower is because we don't have the circulating hormones, you know, that women do, which kind of can stimulate these cancers. So we know, or not everyone knows, but women lifetime have a 1 in 8 chance of getting breast cancer.
Yeah.
Insanely high. That's why we always talk about breast cancer. Men, not so much. 1 in 100,000 men.
Okay.
Yeah, so very, very, very low. But except for these people who are around ground zero, who it's 90 times higher, which is not even, you know, close to what men would be. So that'd be like 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
So instead of 1 in 100,000, like 1 in 1,000, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah. So most common types of breast cancer in men are the same ones that women see. That would be ductal. So, you know, the breast is made of ducts and lobules.
Yeah.
Lobules produce the milk, and then they go through the ducts. So ductal is the most common, then lobular. There are some rare types like sarcomas, adenocarcinomas, Patch disease, and inflammatory breast cancer, which are the same thing as women. Okay. So once men get breast cancer, it follows a very similar path to women. Risk factors: age, as you get older, increased risk. Family history: if your dad had breast cancer, then it's more likely you're going to have breast cancer. Gene mutations: we've talked about BRCA. You guys have heard of BRCA, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so BRCA is basically the mutation in the gene which repairs cells, and women and men, which is much rarer, but women who get BRCA have an enormous increase in breast cancer risk, and also they get really bad breast cancers. Men can have BRCA as well. And so if a man, I would assume that many of the men who get breast cancer probably have BRCA gene activated, and that's why they're getting it. Radiation exposure, Sarah, bam, from
all those printers,
from all the printers that were in the World Trade Center.
All them blowing up.
Yeah, Trey's just shaking his head in there. I wish you guys could see him. He's just like, well, what are they doing?
I'm trying to make sense of it all, right?
You're on the right track, though. You definitely are on the right track, and I applaud you because this is not your wheelhouse.
No.
I don't mean that in a bad way. Your wheelhouse is very broad and big, but it's not this.
No.
But you're doing very good.
Thank you.
Alcohol, obesity, environmental exposure.
Oh, from people like getting. Well, I could see alcohol from people getting depressed.
Oh, right. That would be
Situation.
another one too, right? The social stuff, yeah. Okay, so male breast cancer, detection and diagnosis. A mass is typically what most men, because men don't get mammograms, right?
Nah.
So they're not going to get a mammogram. They're not going to, have this thing detected early, which is better to detect them early. But a lot of men will also talk about bleeding from the nipple.
Ew.
Yeah, that's how a couple. I was reading the stories of these 9/11 guys, and two of them said that their first symptom was bleeding from the nipple.
They're probably like, why? They probably
Why
were
are my
thinking it was
nipples
like
bleeding?
chapped.
Yeah, right. Chafed nipples. That's
Yeah.
definitely a problem. I'm running the Dallas Marathon this weekend, and so I'm gonna have to put my nipple protectors on. Not really. I'm just kidding, but
got
people
some
do that.
You got sticky boobs.
Pasties. Can I
Yeah.
borrow some pasties?
I have some, yeah.
Can I borrow them?
Sure.
Are they silicone? Mm-hmm. Okay, sweet. All right.
I'm like, no, they're the saltwater kind. I'm just kidding.
Treatment. So treatment of male breast cancer is the same as female breast cancer. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and prognosis is similar to female, with the only exception being that because men don't get mammograms, there is the possibility that they could be detected later.
And then it's more serious.
But the one thing is that with men, they don't have as much breast tissue, so lumps can be felt sooner. Women's breasts generally are larger, and so the cancers can be down deep, and they
Yeah.
wouldn't feel them. Men would potentially feel them sooner because they just don't have as much tissue to mask it.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
that's interesting. I thank my wife again for pointing that one out to me, and also it leads into a cool segment about talking about male breast cancer, which, I mean, to be fair, is just not a huge problem. I don't get offended as a man that we're not, have our own pink ribbon.
Yeah.
Because it's just so insanely rare. I think we just focus on female breast cancer and know that male breast cancer is out there, but focus on the fact that women need to be most aware of that.
Yeah, if it can be prevented in females, then it'll be prevented.
It'll be helpful. At least the treatments, right? All the
Yeah.
treatments they're doing for male breast cancer, all thanks to women. Thank you.
Yeah.
On behalf of men for being a woman.
So you're so welcome.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. Okay, now we don't always do this on this show, but every once in a while something interesting pops up and we all get out of our wheelhouse and talk about cool stuff. Now this is not my wheelhouse, but it is sort of my hobby wheelhouse because I like computers, tech.
Yeah.
I love tech. I build my own computers from scratch, which I love doing. So we are going to talk today about what is a quantum computer. Whoa, look at that thing.
It's
That
like
looks
an evil genius basement.
definitely. That looks like it would be at Elon Musk's house.
Yeah.
Maybe like in his entryway. So, have you guys ever heard of a quantum computer?
Yeah.
Sarah? Trey.
No, I have not.
You have not.
I've never heard of a quantum.
Never heard of a quantum computer.
No, I
Okay.
have not.
So, this is going to be kind of a difficult segment to grasp, but my goal here is to educate you guys about quantum computers enough that if you're at a dinner party and someone says quantum computer, you can be like, oh, I know about that because I watched Nip Talk, and obviously that makes me a genius. And I know enough to talk about this in a way that I won't sound dumb. Now, the thing is quantum computers are extremely complex.
Does it have to do with AI?
Only in that quantum computing could be helpful for AI.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this comes from, and the reason we're doing this is there was a recent announcement by Google. Throw up that pic, Trey, if you can. Trey's obviously busy in there. Trey, you there? There we go. He's getting distracted. I see why you're getting distracted, Trey. I'm watching you. All right. So Google this week announced that it's cracked a quantum computer challenge with a new chip. So quantum computers, which I'm about to talk about, are kind of new technology, and all IBM, Google are racing to be the world leaders in quantum computing. And this new chip called Willow solved a problem in 5 minutes that a normal traditional computer would take over 1 billion years to solve. All right, you see the application now?
What was the problem?
So it's basically a very, very complex math problem, okay? And I'll explain why that's important in a second. That's a great question. But a problem so complex a traditional computer could not solve it in 1 billion years was solved by Willow in 5 minutes. So what is a quantum computer? Fill up that pic I want to show. Yeah, so there it is. That's we're talking about the Evil Genius basement. So that is actually a quantum computer. Now, most of that is cooling for the processor, and I'll explain why that's important. So if you want to know what a quantum computer, you first have to have a basic understanding of how a traditional computer works, which I assume you guys probably don't know a lot about how a computer works. I mean, you just turn it on, right? I mean, that's a lot of like us. I mean, how does my cell phone work? I mean, I kind of have some idea, but how does a computer work? So let me break this down into very, very basic information that can be processed, okay? So information in a computer is processed in binary code. You guys heard of binary, ones and zeros?
Yes.
Yep, follow me so far? Trey? Yep, ones and zeros. Okay, so all a computer is doing is using microtransistors. A microtransistor is like a flashlight. It's either on or it's either off.
Okay.
If it's on, that's binary 1. If it's off, it's binary 0. Okay, follow me?
Yes.
Okay, so a computer is made up of billions of microtransistors that are either 1 or 0. And these ones and zeros are lined, these bits, which is short for binary digit, are organized into sections called bytes. So a byte is 8 bits. You've heard of 8-bit technology. Then there was 16-bit technology. Currently, computers are using 64 bits. So that is a code of 64 ones and zeros, which then can be converted into information. Okay. So for example, when you hit an A on your computer, I think the binary for A is 001000001. Okay, that represents an A. All right, so if you understand that, then you can then understand how everything is assigned to binary code, and that's how a computer processes that information. All a computer is like 20 billion little flashlights that are on or off, and then algorithms determine what those flashlights being on or off mean. Okay. So like when you hit like a letter on your keyboard, there's little transistors that are on or off. The computer recognizes that, and then the operating system does stuff with that, and then it produces an output. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. On and off, right? Trey, follow me?
Yes.
I see that we're good. Okay. Okay. So that is how a computer works very basically. Okay. So with the bits, they're either 0 or 1. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, they're either on or off. In a quantum computer, they don't have bits. They have something called qubits. Qubits, qubits. Now, the thing about qubits that makes them different than bits is they can be 0, they can be 1, or they can be any number in between, all right? Okay. And also, so that's called superposition. That's a term you'll hear with quantum computers. Superposition means that the value can be 0 or 1 or anything in between, but also they can be entangled, which means one qubit controls another. Now, don't get lost in the weeds here, but just know that that increase in variability of what a qubit can be means that a quantum computer can process an enormously more amount of information. And kind of the analogy that is used to show that is, say you have a maze that has a billion different ways to get out. Okay. Or a billion different pathways, but only one way to get out. Okay? A traditional computer will check each of those billions of different pathways to find the correct answer. It'll use one, it'll be wrong, it'll go to the next. It'll search another one, it'll go. So it's going to do that billions of times. Mm-hmm. A quantum computer can search every pathway simultaneously because of the increase in variability in the qubit over the bit. Yeah. And so what that means is that a quantum computer can determine information in a much bigger scale. They're not necessarily better for writing an email. They're not necessarily better for playing a video game.
They're better for processing.
They're better for processing enormously complex questions.
I feel like basic computers, the way it sounds like to me, is a basic computer has basic computer language, and then the quantum computer is just like a more elevated, smarter language.
Yeah, you're on the right track. Right? Yes, you are on the right track. Basically, a quantum computer is good for very specific things. So, for example, if you wanted to look at a molecule to determine what a drug would do, so like determining, like making new drugs, the variability in that molecule of each electron and proton spinning around is just insanely complex. Mm-hmm. A traditional computer could never model that. Yeah. There's too many different pathways that could happen, but a quantum computer can. And that's like one of the biggest potential applications, is that a quantum computer could help create drugs very, very quickly that a traditional computer would take years and years to map out.
Yeah.
The other thing is encryption. All of the encryption of the internet and banking software and your passwords is done by something called RSA, which is looking at prime numbers and solving extremely complex questions. And the only way that RSA can be broken is if you know the answer. The only way to know the answer the only way to get the answer correct is if you know it. A computer would take billions of years to crack the code. A quantum computer can do it in minutes. And that's why quantum computing is so important, because whoever masters quantum computing is going to have an enormous advantage.
So it's not mastered yet.
No. So to break RSA encryption, you would have to have a quantum computer that had roughly 1 million qubits, okay? Remember, a modern computer in bits has like 20 billion, all right? So 1 million is way, way less than 20 billion, right? So 1 million qubits would not be a very complex quantum computer potentially. The Willow, the one that broke this program, has 105 qubits.
Okay.
So we're not quite there yet. But like everything, the technology with quantum computers is increasing exponentially.
And it looks like a big machine.
Yeah, it looks like that thing.
It's like huge.
The one thing that makes quantum computers more difficult to actually build is that qubits are very, very sensitive and prone to errors by any outside interference, including temperature. Mm-hmm. Any type of heat molecule will disrupt these qubits and make them give wrong answers. And so a quantum computer has to be maintained near absolute zero, which is minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's why I can't just go build, I mean, I guess technically I could if I had unlimited supplies. I can't just go build a quantum computer like I can, because that's one of the big rate limits.
Well, I'm sure eventually it'll be like as small to put in your hand, just like the first computers were like as big as like a convention center or whatever.
And now like we have computers like this,
in
which
your
are
hand.
more powerful than supercomputers of 20 years ago, and it's all in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Technology is advancing.
And it'll be like, it's like, because I was doing research for my master's degree about AI, and they do drug-to-drug interaction.
Yeah, so
things.
quantum computing would be right up your alley with what you guys do at American Heart Association.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but the main take home, so if you're going to talk about quantum computers, really, if you want to get anything out of this, is that quantum computers use qubits as opposed to bits. And in a traditional computer, a bit is a 0 or 1, and a quantum computer, that value can be 0, 1, or anything in between. And that extra variability allows for insanely increased computing power, with the best analogy being about the maze. So, all right, hey, can we recap this one? Come here to me and let's talk about this in a little detail. So today, as a interesting segment, we were talking about quantum computers. And the reason I was talking about quantum computers is that Google just released a statement saying that their Willow quantum computer solved a problem in 5 minutes that a traditional computer would take 1 billion years to crack. And so because of this, I thought we should learn a little bit about quantum computers. And it's a very, very complex topic that I could spend entire days talking about and not fully explain it. But I'm going to break it down in the most simple terms possible so that you can talk to your friends smartly about quantum computers. So a traditional computer uses bits. A bit is a 0 or 1, meaning a transistor is either on or off, and that's how a traditional computer processes information. A quantum computer uses qubits. A qubit can be 0 or 1 or any number in between, and that increase in variability allows for enormously increased amount of computing power. And the best analogy to use is a traditional computer, if it was trying to solve a maze that had 1 billion different pathways with only one correct answer, a traditional computer would check each pathway sequentially or individually until it found the right answer. A quantum computer would search every pathway in the maze simultaneously, which makes it increasingly more powerful. So what would a quantum computer be used for? It'd be used for mapping molecules, encryption, and things that have enormous numbers with insane amounts of variabilities. And it is a race to see who can create the first fully functional and advanced quantum computer. We're not really there yet. The Willow has 100 qubits, or a little over 100. And really, to break things like RSA encryption, which is what runs the internet, you need 1 million qubits. So we're not there, but the technology is increasing. And now you know about quantum computers, Sarah. Next time you go to a party, I want you to tell someone about quantum computers.
I'll be sure to do that.
And the thing about quantum computers is, unless you're talking to 1 out of 10 million people, the information I gave you just now will make you smarter than than almost anyone about quantum computers.
Yeah.
Because I love computers, and I've looked at this intensely, and it still is kind of a little bit nebulous for me. I mean, I
Yeah.
tried to break it down pretty simple, but when you get in a little bit deeper level, it gets insanely complex.
Way over the head.
Way over the pay grade. So, all right, I think that's about all the time we have for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Please leave us a comment if you want us to talk about any topics. We would love to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Nip Talk.
Bye.
Bye.